All right, some pretty wild war threats coming out from Russia against the United States today, October the 8th, 2025. We're hearing threats of responses of retaliatory consequences as a result of the Tomahawk missiles that have been given over, and also nuclear bomb threats coming out as well. Now I'm going to share with you the latest headlines, and a lot of these coming out primarily from foreign media outlets. I've not seen the United States news media outlets reporting on this. Let me share with you what's going on. And as I mentioned, this as a result of the United States saying they would provide those long-range Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine to use against Russia, and Russia not happy about this because that means that Moscow is directly in line for potential hits by Ukraine. Now, let's take a look at this. I just watched the video footage of Putin's meeting today. A lot coming out today, October the 8th, Wednesday, from Russia. Let's take a look at this so you can see it for yourself. Russian Foreign Ministry has now threatened the United States with severe consequences if it supplies Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles. We're going to be covering the details. Russia will destroy the Tomahawk missiles and their launchers if the U.S. gives them to Ukraine, senior lawmakers say. And you can see here, we're going to dive into the details, but it says they will also find a way to retaliate against Washington or the United States that hurts, the senior Russian lawmaker said Wednesday, today, October the 8th. Reading on, Russia says the momentum now for Ukraine peace deal has faded. They are blaming the United States for the worsening ties. Now look at this. Russia has now formally moved, as of 4 hours ago, to exit landmark U.S. plutonium disposal pact. They're saying they are getting rid of tons and tons of plutonium that they could use for nuclear weapons. They're saying they are removing themselves from that pact because they are now preparing any nuclear weapons that they have to potentially be ready for who knows what. And take a look. Russian state TV coming out today now threatens to bomb NATO country over the Tomahawk missiles. Things have really erupted as a result of Donald Trump coming out and saying that he's thinking about supplying them with these Tomahawks. And that is because, as I mentioned, take a look. There is now no safe zone in Russia. The U.S. Tomahawks put Russian bases within Ukraine's reach. And that is why today, October the 8th, 2025, we are seeing Russian President Vladimir Putin coming out in a statement, Russia coming out as well, issuing nuclear threats, bomb threats, retaliatory threats. Things are escalating significantly in the war with Russia and Ukraine. Things are not de-escalating. We are moving closer and closer to war. So I'm going to get you caught up on the latest. I'm also going to play for you the video footage of Donald Trump, what he had to say 2 days ago that caused a lot of this to escalate. And that was, as you know, Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, he has been asking the United States for those long-range Tomahawk missiles to use against Russia. Well, the United States has not given those Tomahawks. And now we're hearing that Donald Trump was trying to get negotiations with Russia to de-escalate the situation, get a ceasefire, peace deal agreement. Donald Trump becoming very frustrated with Russian President Vladimir Putin. As he says, they'll meet. Putin will say, yes, we'll have a deal. It'll work. We're open to peace. Then that same day after the meeting, Putin goes and launches massive attacks against Ukraine. So Trump has said that he is fed up with Putin, called him a paper tiger, and has said that he is now considering giving those Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. And that would mean that Russia, Moscow, would be in reach for potential strikes from Ukraine. And Russia is saying that if that happens, we will retaliate. We will shoot down those Tomahawks, shoot down the bases they came from, and we will also hit the United States as well. And in fact, we are now pulling out of that plutonium pact, and those are the materials that we need for nuclear weapons. It is all on the table. This all coming out today in the past couple of hours, October the 8th, 2025. Actually just got done watching the address from Putin. And like I said, haven't really seen this on the U.S. media outlets. Primarily, we're going to be diving into some of the foreign news media outlets that have been reporting on this in the past couple of hours. So I'm going to dive into the details so that way you can see the latest for yourself, play the video footage, the articles, put it on this screen, read right from it so you know exactly what is going on, where it's coming from, and the latest. Now, do me a favor, if you appreciate that, before we dive in, please take a second, hit that thumbs up like button. I know this is not the news that anybody wants to hear. However, if you appreciate the breaking news updates coming out from all across the world, it really helps out the live stream just to take a second, hit that thumbs up. Also, to stay up to date, it's totally free, pretty much doing daily updates now. Hit that subscribe button. I'll keep you up to speed on everything as There is a lot going on in the world right now. So we're going to start off with some video footage of what Donald Trump had to say on this that sort of caused a lot of this to escalate over the last 48 hours as he has become very, very upset with Putin's approach. Putin essentially lying to Donald Trump, saying, yes, I'm ready to do a peace deal agreement, and then turning around that same day and issuing out attacks. Let's go ahead and take a look.
I didn't know she was even asking for it, frankly.
Supply Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, sell them to NATO, and let them sell them to Ukraine.
Yeah, I've sort of made a decision, pretty much, if you consider. Yeah, I think I want to find out what they're doing with them.
Yes.
You know, where are they sending them, I guess. I'd have to ask that question. That war should never have started, would have never started. Such bad judgment was used there. I think on both sides, by the way. But nobody looks good with the war with Russia and Ukraine. Nobody. That's been a horrible. This week they lost over 7,000 soldiers between the two of them.
And those missiles,
this is every week they're losing 7,000, 8,000, 5,000.
They have a range of like 1,500 miles or something, and so they'd be able to.
No, I know. No, I would ask some questions. I want to see what's. I'm not looking to see escalation.
So there you have it, you guys. He said, I'm not looking to have escalation with the conflict, but we're hearing just the consideration of this is getting Russia on edge, because this would put Moscow in the crosshairs of Ukraine. And Ukraine has come out, and we saw Zelensky come out and say, Russia better find their bomb shelters, because once we get a hold of those Tomahawks, we are going to use them immediately. To which we actually saw Russia respond right away and say, well, somebody better remind Ukraine that Russia has nuclear bombs that bomb shelters won't protect you against. And they said also, somebody better remind the United States as well. Man, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Should the United States provide Ukraine with these Tomahawks? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. I've heard a lot of people say Russia can't even handle Ukraine. How are they going to handle a fight with the United States and NATO? I've heard other people say you don't want to escalate this. Don't give them the Tomahawks. Let me know your thoughts. Yes or no? Should the United States provide these long-range missiles to Ukraine? Now, we're also going to be taking a look at the range of this. I'm going to share with you some maps so you can see it for yourself. Now, before we dive in also to these, I wanted to mention as well that a lot of people have been asking about diversifying their portfolio. What's the best decision when we're in global conflict and uncertainty? And I wanted to bring to your attention my friends over at Lear Capital. You can see silver is hitting all-time highs. And right now, that's a safe haven, precious metals, during times of uncertainty. You've been thinking about it? You can go ahead and give them a call at 1-800-411-2430. They've been helping people out for decades. Or go to learram.com. They've got free resources so that way you can make the best educated decision. You can see how quickly the price has been skyrocketing, and that's why right now we're seeing articles coming out like this. Could silver really hit $100 per ounce? If you want to put your money somewhere where it's going to pay off and you want to make sure that you don't miss out, try giving my friends over at Lear a call. Like I said, a 20-minute call with a real person could get you the information you need to make a good decision, and it's totally free. Why not? And also, if you mention that you heard about them from the Steve Ram channel, they're going to give you $500 in credits towards any costs to get started to open up an account if you want to invest. So thank you to Lear for making that available. I'll pin that information in the description. But now let's discuss these Tomahawks and what it was that Russia had to say today, coming out from foreign news media outlets. U.S. media not really reporting on this yet. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. Now, Russian Foreign Ministry threatens the United States with severe consequences if it supplies Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles. You can see this coming out today. Now, this article says Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov has said that the United States must understand the depth and the severity of the consequences should it decide to provide Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles. Now, the source, the Russian media group RBC, has reported this by European Pravda. Now, Rybakov said that Russia is urging the United States to act responsibly regarding the possible transfer of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. The hypothetical use of such system is only possible with the direct involvement of American personnel. Now, he says, I hope those pushing Washington towards this decision fully understand the depth and the severity of these consequences, he stated. Rybakov called on the White House and the Pentagon to approach the situation soberly, prudently, and responsibly. Now, the background. U.S. President Donald Trump stated earlier that he had sort of made a decision on the supply of Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, as we just saw in that video footage. Earlier, Russian leader Vladimir Putin said that if Ukraine uses long-range Tomahawk missiles, it will harm Moscow and Washington relations. So they are saying the United States is on warning. If you give them these Tomahawk missiles, we will retaliate not only against Ukraine, but also against the United States. This will put a major strain. And as you saw, that video footage, Donald Trump came out and said, I have sort of made a decision on this. Now, initially, Russia came out and said, we need more information on what that sort of decision is. But now they're warning that if they do supply those, there will be consequences against the United States. Let's take a look at some more articles coming out today. Russia will destroy Tomahawk missiles and their launchers if the U.S. gives them to Ukraine, senior lawmaker says. Now, this one coming out from Reuters today. It says, Russia will shoot down Tomahawk cruise missiles and bomb their launch sites if the United States decides to supply them to Ukraine, and will find a way to retaliate against Washington or the United States that hurts, a senior Russian lawmaker said on Wednesday. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday that he would want to know what Ukraine planned to do with the Tomahawks before agreeing to provide them, because he did not want to escalate the war between Russia and Ukraine. He said, however, that he had sort of made a decision on the matter. Sweatnam Ministries #2, thank you so much. Darned if we do, and also if we don't. As a former U.S. soldier, I say strike first. Again, we need to prepare spiritually and physically. Let me know if you agree with Sweatnam. If you agree, put war in the comments. If you disagree, put peace. Thank you for that $10 super chat. I appreciate that a ton. Reading on from the article coming out a couple hours ago, it says, our response will be tough, ambiguous, measured, and asymmetrical. We will find a way to hurt those who cause us trouble, said Andrei Kartapalvo, head of the Russian Parliament's Defense Committee. He told the state RIA news agency. So some new threats coming out today. Just to clarify, these threats that we're going to be reading about, these articles all coming out today. Now, he also, the former deputy defense minister, said that he did not think Tomahawks would change anything on the battlefield, even if they were supplied to Ukraine, as he said that they could only be given in small numbers, in tens rather than hundreds. We know these missiles very well, how they fly, how to shoot them down. We worked with them in Syria, so there's nothing new. The only problems will be for those who supply them and those who use them. That's where the problems will be. So again, direct threats to Ukraine and to the United States. Now, Kartapalvo was also cited as saying that Moscow had so far seen no signs that Ukraine was preparing the launch sites for Tomahawks, something that he said that Kiev would not be able to hide if it got such missiles. If and when that happens, he said that Russia would use drones and missiles to destroy any launchers. Separately, Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov urged Washington to assess the situation around the potential supply of Tomahawks soberly. He said that any such decision would be serious escalatory steps that would bring about a qualitative change to the situation. And that is because, as you are seeing here, they are saying this would pull Russia into direct conflict with the United States. Joyce Faith, welcome to the Ram Fam. Thank you for hitting the join button, supporting with those monthly contributions. Not necessary, but greatly appreciated. As a result, not only will you see all of my sources in the video descriptions, but they'll also pop up on your live feeds. Now, let's take a look at this as well. Russia, 5 hours ago, says that the momentum of Ukraine peace deal has faded, blames the U.S. for worsening ties. And as I mentioned, Russia, Putin coming out with a statement today, October the 8th, making a lot of announcements, and a lot of them very aggressive, directly against the United States. Let's take a look at this article. Russia Deputy Foreign Minister said on Wednesday that progress towards a potential peace deal to end the war in Ukraine had largely stalled, blaming Kiev's European allies for undermining early diplomatic momentum. Unfortunately, we have to admit that the strong momentum from Anchorage in favor of reaching agreements has, to a large extent, been exhausted. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov was quoted as saying by the state media, "This is the result of the Europeans' destructive actions." President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President Donald Trump, they held a brief summit in Anchorage, Alaska, in August 15th. Talks that at the time had been billed as an opportunity to break the deadlock in Ukraine's peace negotiations. However, the meeting ended without any breakthrough, and Trump has since adopted a tougher tone towards Moscow, repeatedly saying that he is very disappointed in the Kremlin leadership. Tensions have further risen as the United States officials weighed sending long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine, a move that Putin has previously warned would bring a whole new level of escalation. And again, this is because we are hearing that this would essentially pull the United States into the conflict directly with Russia. Now, reading on, Trump told reporters at the White House this week that he had sort of made a decision, as you saw in that video footage, on sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine as his impatience grows over Putin's refusal to participate in direct negotiations with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, Rybakov said Wednesday that such a move would mark a significant, one might even say qualitative, change in the situation, but emphasized that it would not affect Russia's determination to achieve our state goals. Now, I hope that those who are pushing Washington towards such decisions fully understand the gravity and the depth of the potential consequences here, the deputy foreign minister told state media. We, of course, call on the United States leadership and the American military to approach this situation soberly, sensibly, and responsibly. Maria, thank you so much for that $10 super chat. I appreciate that support a ton. Now, Rybakov also talked about how efforts to stabilize relations with Washington were collapsing, accusing the United States of being responsible for the breakdown. Randy, thank you so much for the $3 super chat. Says, thanks for what you do, Steve. You are very welcome, Randy. I will continue to keep you up to date. Reading on, what we have is a building of sorts, a structure of relations that is cracked and is now collapsing. And the Americans are to blame for that, the Russian official said. I think it's always easier to destroy than to build. Now, Rybakov said that Moscow was ready to rebuild relations with the United States, but doesn't see any movement in that direction from the other side. So again, directly blaming and threatening the United States for what's unfolding. And we're going to be seeing where we go from here, because Russia is claiming that they're on board. However, we're hearing that Russia is claiming the United States is not making any effort to repair relations. However, as you know, Donald Trump, he has been saying he has been attempting to get peace between Russia and Ukraine, and that Putin says, yes, we're on board, but then that same day goes and makes massive attacks against Ukraine. And again, you can see here this article coming out 5 hours ago. Now, let's see here. In addition to that, take a look at this. Now, this is a little bit concerning, coming out 4 hours ago. And like I said, foreign news media outlets reporting on this quite a bit. A lot unfolding today in Russia. October the 8th, 2025. Russia now moves to formally exit their landmark U.S. plutonium disposal pact. Take a look at this. Russia's lower house State Duma voted Wednesday today to fully withdraw from a long-suspended bilateral agreement with the United States on the disposal of weapons-grade plutonium. Washington and Moscow signed the Plutonium Management and Disposition Agreement, the PMDA, in 2000, committing both countries to eliminating 34 metric tons each of weapons-grade plutonium. So Russia is saying, we're pulling out of this pact. We're not going to be getting rid of our weapons-grade plutonium after all. Something has changed as of today. The material was enough for nearly 17,000 nuclear weapons. Now, that's literally 3 times what Russia currently has, or the United States. So they're saying that they are not getting rid of the materials that they have to create nuclear weapons. They're not going to be disposing of them, and they could multiply multiple times over their stockpile of nuclear weapons. The PMDA officially came into force in 2011 after it was renegotiated a year earlier, but Russia suspended its implementation in 2016 over deteriorating relations with the U.S. The Kremlin demanded sanctions relief and a rollback in NATO expansion to reinstate the deal. Now, before Wednesday's Duma vote, Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rabkov stressed that none of these conditions can be fulfilled, given that the situation has changed radically. And there you have it. Today, this coming out, major decisions coming out today by Russia, and they are saying, we have decided that we are not going to be disposing of our materials to potentially make 17,000 nuclear warheads because something has radically changed as of today, and they have voted to go ahead withdraw from that agreement to dispose of these nuclear materials, and they're saying we're holding on to them. Things have radically changed. The strategic environment has changed fundamentally, he told lawmakers, citing U.S. legislation supporting Ukraine, NATO's expansion of Eastern Europe, and what Moscow claims to be Washington's departure from the original terms of the plutonium disposal. Now, Russia says the momentum for Ukraine's peace deal has faded. Reading on, it says Russia has accused the United States of storing the plutonium in liquid form, which could later be used for military purposes instead of the original plan to convert plutonium into mixed oxide fuel. After being ratified in 3 consecutive Duma votes on Wednesday, Russia's denunciation of PMDA will move for a single vote in the Upper House Federation Council before being signed into law by President Vladimir Putin. If they, the United States, behave well, we can return to the consideration of this agreement, said the senior Duma member Nikonov ahead of the vote. The Federation of American Scientists estimates that Russia and the United States together still hold roughly 8,000 nuclear warheads, down from the 73,000 deployed in the later years of the Cold War in the 1980s. So again, Russia and the United States, the 2 top nuclear powers, no one else even comes close. If I remember correctly, Russia does hold a little bit more according to data that's out there. However, Donald Trump recently came out and said Russia needs to remember we actually have more and more powerful nuclear warheads. Claims made by Donald Trump. Now, in addition to threats coming out today towards the United States, Russia also making threats to NATO countries, potential bombings that could be on the way, as we're also seeing them pull out of pacts that would withhold some of their nuclear power. Let's take a look at this as well. Now, this article says a Russian lawmaker has warned that Moscow could bomb NATO member Poland if the United States provides Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. So Russia coming out and threatening Ukraine, threatening Poland, and the United States this morning, October the 8th, 2025. During a discussion on state TV program 60 Minutes, Russian MP Alexei Zervakov warned that Moscow would be ready for potential missiles delivery and said it could target Poland's military hub in response. Newsweek contacted the Poland Foreign Ministry for comments by email. Now, here's why it matters. Vice President J.D. Vance said in September that the Trump administration was discussing Kiev's request for Tomahawk missiles, a prospect that has alarmed the Kremlin and its propagandists. They are worried about Kiev's ability to strike deep inside of Russia. And we're going to be taking a look at the maps here in just a second so you can see just how vulnerable Moscow actually would be, putting many more of its military and energy sites within range. Tomahawks have a range of up to 1,600 miles, which surpasses other Western missiles Ukraine uses, such as Storm Shadows and ATACMS, and so could be a game change in this fight. And that is why today we have heard they said the situation has drastically and radically changed, and that is why there are threats being issued out by Russia. Speaking on 60 Minutes, this person, the chairman of Rodinia Political Party and first deputy chairman of the Parliamentary Defense Committee, said that the U.S. would deliver Tomahawks to Ukraine for strikes on Russian sites. He added that Russia needed to show that we are ready for an escalation. And while Moscow was not in conflict with Poland, it would be ready to strike its Rzeszów military hub. Now, the show's host, Olga referred to a warning from Russian President Vladimir Putin that Ukraine's use of the missiles would lead to a new level of escalation in the war and crush the relations between Moscow and Washington, D.C. She also said that the U.S. providing Tomahawks could pressure Germany to supply Kiev with Taurus missiles, which would be a dangerous escalation. She also mentioned Newsweek, which previously published a map from the Institute for the Study of War revealing the Russian sites that would be within the range of the Tomahawk missiles. She described the prospect as alarming, to put it politely. Now, we're going to be taking a look at that map here in just a second. However, many observers have expressed doubt over whether the U.S. would provide the missiles to Ukraine. Do you think that we should? Let me know in the comments again, yes or no. Should the U.S. provide these Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine? However, many observers have expressed doubt over whether the U.S. will provide these. Now, Boychikov, the founder of the Hope for Ukraine, which provides support to communities on the front line, told Newsweek that the prospect of the U.S. supplying Ukraine with the missiles was nearly impossible, given that their traditional launch platforms are sea-based and primarily deployed from U.S. Navy ships and submarines. And we actually heard Russia come out and say, wherever they are deployed from, we will hit, regardless of if it's from Ukraine or the United States. The source of these deployments will be struck. Now, he added that while the U.S. also has ground-based launchers for Tomahawk missiles, these systems are scarce, and Washington is unlikely to sell them to European NATO members. So here's what people are saying. Journalist Julia Davis wrote on X, "Meanwhile in Russia, First Deputy Chairman of the State Duma Defense Committee, Alexei Zurvavyov, argued that the best way that Russia can retaliate against America for sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine would be to bomb the Zevkal air base in Poland." So again, threats coming out of bombings. We're hearing these threats coming out to the U.S., to Ukraine, to Poland. Boychikov said Ukraine has a very small navy, and the chances of it acquiring a Tomahawk-capable surface ship or submarine are nearly zero. He added that the Trump administration was simply making headline-grabbing statements which will not materialize. So they're saying that Donald Trump is bluffing on this Tomahawk threat, essentially. And we actually have not heard a firm yes from Trump quite yet either. As you guys know, as I shared with you the video footage of what he actually said, he said, "I think we've sort of made a decision." And we're hearing just that statement alone, not saying yes or no, has put Russia on edge, because they know if Ukraine gets those, Moscow will be in the crosshairs of Ukraine. Now, Zuravyov told 60 Minutes that we aren't at war with the Polish people, but we're at war against their Rzeszów base. So here's what happens next. Trump has not made a final decision on Tomahawks, and questions remain over how they would be supplied if the plan was greenlit, and whether Moscow would step up its rhetoric over escalation, which would prompt a Russian response. Now, the associate at LSE Ideas, the London School of Economics think tank, told Newsweek previously that their transfer was unlikely, as the U.S. has a limited number to share around, and that there are issues around authorization. So, man, let me know your thoughts. Do you think that this is a bluff, or is this real? Put it in the comments for me. Bluff or real? Donald Trump's statements and providing Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Let me know your thoughts down below. Now, let's discuss these actual Tomahawk missiles and why this is getting Russia so much on edge, and why today, October the 8th, we are seeing the response coming out from Russia in this manner. Let's take a look at this article so you can see it for yourself. No safe zone left. U.S. Tomahawks put Russian bases within Ukraine's reach. Now, this article, as you can see, coming out in the last 24 hours, U.S. President Donald Trump confirmed that that they will supply Ukraine with Tomahawk cruise missiles under U.S. operational control. So if they send it, they said, we want to know what exactly they're going to be using it for. Beyond the headline, this move signals a turning point in Western military strategy and could reshape the security architecture of Europe, according to Army recognition on October 7th. Now, the Tomahawk land attack missile or the TLAM, is one of the most precise and versatile long-range strike systems in the U.S. arsenal. Now, with a reach exceeding 1,600 kilometers, it allows deep penetration attacks on high-value targets while flying at low altitudes that evade radar detection. We're hearing these are very low flying and can go long distances. For Ukraine, this means the ability to strike Russian air bases, logistics hubs, and command posts far from the front line. Targets previously considered out of reach, even for Storm Shadow and ATACMS systems. Here's an image you can see of that Tomahawk missile. Now, by maintaining U.S. command authority over the missile launches, Washington ensures tight control over escalation while still enhancing Kiev's strategic reach. It's a model that blends deterrence with oversight. Ukraine gains the power to hit deep behind Russian lines, but only under coordinated U.S. authorization. This approach may become a blueprint for future Western support, enabling advanced capabilities without relinquishing command. According to Army recognition, U.S. and NATO planners, they are now preparing compatible ground-based launch platforms. These are likely to include modified Mk-41 vertical launch systems or mobile land versions derived from the U.S. Army's Typhoon missile program. Now let's go ahead and take a look here. You can see the long-range Tomahawk missiles, and it is extending out to this yellow-orange line and out to the blue as well, 2,500 kilometers, 1,600 kilometers, well within range of a lot of resources and bases for Moscow. Now, prior to that, they had, as you can see, the ATACMS. They also had some other shorter range missiles, and so they were only able to reach just this far, just not able to quite get to Moscow. But now we're seeing that it goes well above and beyond that point. Now, reading on, it says Ukrainian units are expected to receive both hardware and training for integrated targeting under U.S. supervision. The introduction of Tomahawks changes more than battlefield geography. It alters strategic psychology. Russian military infrastructure deep within its territory, once protected by distance, is no longer secure. From command centers in Belgorod to the Black Sea Fleet facilities in Crimea, key nodes of the Russian war effort would fall within potential range. In practical terms, the move reduces Moscow's ability to operate with impunity in its rear areas, compelling it to disperse assets, harden air bases, and divert resources from the front. For Europe, it signals that Washington is ready to move beyond symbolic aid, supplying tools that can decisively shift operation dynamics while preserving control against escalation. Now, the decision also fits a broader pattern of expanding precision strike capabilities among NATO allies. As Army recognition notes, Trump's approval of Tomahawks for Ukraine follows earlier U.S. initiatives to allow allied integration of advanced systems like HIMARS and Storm Shadows. But unlike those weapons, Tomahawks redefine range, stealth, and unpredictability, three variables that could change the tempo of the war itself. Earlier, during a closed-door meeting at the United Nations on September 26, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky asked U.S. President Donald Trump to provide Tomahawk cruise missiles, a request that Trump appeared open to considering. In a same-day interview, Zelensky said Trump will work on it. So we are hearing that we are very close to that becoming a reality. And again, let me know your thoughts. Should the United States do this? They're saying just him suggesting this is putting massive pressure on Russia, and that is why we're seeing these threats coming out. But in addition to this pressure, potentially, we could see them back off if they realize Donald Trump is not bluffing. We don't want to go down this road. Should Donald Trump supply Ukraine with these Tomahawk missiles? It has now provoked a lot of threats coming out today, and some are saying that this is just a bluff by Donald Trump. What do you think? Should he supply these? Yes or no? Drop it in the comments. And if you haven't done so yet, hit that like button if you appreciate the updates. And again, for those of you hopping on a little bit late, let's take a look at what Trump actually had to say in the last 48 hours so you can see it for yourself.
I didn't know she was even asking for it, frankly.
Supply Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, or sell them to NATO and let them sell them to Ukraine.
Yeah, I've sort of made a decision, pretty much, if you consider. Yeah, I think I want to find out what they're doing with them.
Yes.
You know, where are they sending them? I guess I'd have to ask that question. That war should never have started, would have never started. Such bad judgment was used there. I think on both sides, by the way. But nobody looks good with the war with Russia and Ukraine. Nobody. That's been a horrible. This week they lost over 7,000 soldiers between the two of them.
And those missiles,
This is every week they're losing 7,000, 8,000, 5,000.
they have a range of like 1,500 miles or something, and so they'd be able to.
No, I know. No, I would ask some questions. I want to see what's. I'm not looking to see escalation.
So there you have it, you guys. Donald Trump saying he is not looking to see escalation, but he is tired of Putin's tactics in these negotiations, and he is getting very aggressive, putting the pressure on Russia. And that is why today we have been seeing these headlines coming out. As I mentioned to you, Russian Foreign Ministry threatens the U.S. with severe consequences if it supplies Ukraine with those Tomahawk missiles. Russia will destroy the Tomahawk missiles and their launchers, which we're hearing would likely be U.S. launchers, if they are given to Ukraine, the senior lawmaker says, and it says they will also find a way to retaliate against the United States that hurts. And again, all of this coming out today. Russia says the momentum for Ukraine peace deal has faded, blames the United States. Russia moves to formally exit their landmark U.S. plutonium disposal pact, which we're hearing would be enough material to supply 17,000 nuclear warheads. Russian state TV now threatens to bomb NATO country over Tomahawk missiles, and that is Poland. Threats today for Poland, Ukraine, and the United States being issued by Russia, and that is because, as we mentioned, we just read a little while ago, those U.S. Tomahawks, they are threatening to provide them to Ukraine, and we heard Zelensky say the moment that we receive those Tomahawks, they're going to be heading towards Russia. Russia, you better find your bomb shelters. We heard Russia hit back immediately and say, Ukraine better remember that Russia has nuclear bombs that your bomb shelters won't protect you against. And also, somebody better remind the United States of this as well. Man, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Where are we going to be heading? War or peace? What is on the horizon? Do you think we're going to be able to de-escalate? Do you think that Trump is bluffing? Do you think that Putin is bluffing? Or do you think that we are about to enter into some global conflict, World War III, war with Russia versus NATO, the United States, Ukraine, Iran, we're hearing potentially get pulled into this, China? There's a lot taking place. Now, regardless of what unfolds, I'll be sure to share with you here on the channel. I'll cite the sources, put it on the screen, read right from it, even if I got to pull them from foreign news media outlets like the majority of today's articles as well. The United States, for some reason, not reporting on a lot of what came out today in Russia. I'll continue to keep you up to date here on the channel. And if you appreciate that, take a second, hit that thumbs up like button for me. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. Keep you up to speed on everything. But that is the latest today, October the 8th, 2025. And as more comes out, I'll be sure to share right away. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.